Loud. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much all for joining us. This is our second official MPH alumni panel. I'm gonna give a brief introduction of like the ground rules and things like that, and then I'll turn it over to our guests. But just know throughout this whole thing, like it's informal. There's only a handful of us here, so if you want to turn your camera off and that kind of thing, please do. You can ask questions in the chat. Like this is a conversation amongst friends. But just very intelligent and successful friends. So feel free to do that, and we'll get this whole thing rocking and rolling here. So, like I said, just a few ground rules. So just please demonstrate respect for our speakers and the other attendees. Follow the golden rule. Treat others as you'd like to be treated. Listen. Don't do anything crazy. Please also just keep your mics off if you're not like talking. So if there's something else going on in the background, but you can obviously turn off your mic and chime in whenever you like. And then feel free to drop questions in the chat, like I said, or you can virtually raise your hand. I mean, again, this is informal. The webinar is being recorded, so like don't do anything crazy or say anything crazy. And if don't say anything bad about Dr. Porter because he's on the call too. Or don't say things you wouldn't want repeated, that kind of thing. And not that I think anyone would do that, but I don't want it to happen. And then Zach, you didn't tell me, and all that stuff. But really excited that you're all here. So I will turn it over to our panelists, and I'll just have them do some brief introductions. And so if you guys could talk, just say your name, the program that you graduated, or department that you graduated from, and then what you're doing now, and then we can get more into the specifics of your employment shortly. So Seth, you're the first on my camera, so why don't you go, and then I'll call you out.
Thanks, Zach. So happy to be here with y'all tonight. And yeah, my name is Seth Shelby. I graduated from the HPB program, and I am currently a program manager with the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. And I essentially am working on a few various grants right now, but really just focusing on school wellness and PSE changes. So policy systems and environmental changes within districts and schools. And yeah, I'll pass it over to Jayla.
Awesome. Thank you for putting this together, Zach, and it's great to see everybody this evening. My name is Jayla Harris. I graduated from the HISPM program, and I am currently working as a clinical trials assistant at a nonprofit clinical research organization that is based in North Carolina. So it's a lot of clinical study trials, and mostly that scope focuses on HIV prevention and COVID prevention, and then we kind of like mix some things together, like so. We'll do on the intersections of maybe substance use and HIV, and just a bunch of like national and international studies. I'll pass it on to Krista.
Hi, everybody. I'm Krista. I graduated from the Physical Activity and Public Health program, so the one that's with the Exercise Science Department. Currently, Zach was a nice graduate from that. Currently, I am a research health educator at the Durham VA, so the Department of Veterans Affairs. I started that about 8 months ago now. And so basically what I do is I work on a clinical trial in exercise for veterans with PTSD. So it's older veterans, 65 years and older. So I was brought on to create the entire control group and then also assist with both the intervention and control. So it's a bunch of recruitment of older adults, and with COVID, it's all turned virtual. So you can imagine using a lot of public health knowledge and skills working with older adults virtually and in person. So yeah, that's what I've been up to since graduating.
Oh man, it's so exciting because 3 really distinct and unique careers, and you all have really unique paths of how you got into all this stuff. And I'm going to ask about that next. But for our attendees, they all graduated together at the same time this time last year. And so crazy enough, this could be you on the panel this time next year, and you'll be telling your transition to your career, that kind of thing. So I might be asking some of you, so just keep that in mind. So with that being said, would you guys briefly share about, and briefly or however long it needs to be, share about your public health story and kind of your career trajectory that led you to your job that you're in now? So that's open to anyone, or you can do the same order. So whatever works for y'all.
I'm cool with the same order.
All right.
Yep.
I'm cool with that. Yeah, it keeps it easy. Yeah, so I really went into it. I always say this very genuinely. As a child, you know, ACEs kind of were a part of my life, and I didn't really understand that until a later time in my life. And so when I finished high school, I didn't really have a lot of opportunities other than join the military. I'll put it frankly. And while I was in and served, I found myself drawn to, of course, the physical activity components, but also when I was done and the experiences that I had to sort of weather while deployed in Iraq, I came back really focusing on my emotional intelligence and sort of where that was going to lead me in my journey. And I was really looking for purpose and fulfillment and all those things that are kind of longing. Those were things I appreciated about military service, but there was a lot of things that I was still struggling with. And so it was really in that path of healing that I found myself. I'd gotten back from Iraq, and I was just really not sure what I wanted to do yet, but I knew it would sort of hit me. I would have that gut feeling, and I went down to help my late stepfather, who was a physical educator in Georgetown, and I helped him with a field day and just got addicted. I'm talking like 10 sessions of aerobic fitness with like kindergarten through fifth graders, and I was feeling the love, and like I was pouring sweat, and in that moment, I knew that this wellness, there was something about that path that made it just very appealing to me. So I went into teaching, taught physical education for the last 5 years in Virginia, and I taught for a nonprofit with science education in Raleigh, and then for the last 5 years in South Carolina as a PE teacher and a health teacher. So a few years ago, I was having, my fiance and I were expecting our son. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to use my experience to kind of go a step above. I didn't really understand, ecological models and sort of like systems thinking. I didn't understand that stuff, but I knew there was something else that was giving me a lot of barriers within education and wellness. And luckily, the program was perfect. The faculty, everything about what I went through. I got to work with Jayla on multiple projects, and some of those projects were, I don't know, just so enlightening to me in my journey. Because I went through the MPH program not knowing where I wanted to go. And so after my practicum experience, I was lucky enough to be in a position to sort of transition almost right away. And so I got the job right before graduation, and I don't know, it's literally been a game changer for me in the sense of how connected I feel to the work and what's going on. And that's a feeling I wouldn't be able to have without my experiences within the MPH program. So I'll stop there and pass it over to Jayla.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that, Seth. Similarly to Seth, I kind of went into public health and this MPH program not knowing exactly where I wanted to go. I got my bachelor's degree in political science, and I found out about, public health and, that stream like in my junior or maybe senior year. And I just knew, I was like, okay, I want to take this a step further. I want to find out more. How can I use this to then, possibly do policy changes in the future, and how do I get there? And with health, and one of my passions is really minority health and health of underrepresented communities. And so I wanted to get to that point, and I thought, okay, an MPH will probably get me there. We're going to try. We're going to see what happens. And I just loved the program, getting to work with all of the people in our cohort. And like Seth said, it was super enlightening, and it really kind of, you like leave the program with a bag of like different skills and passions, and you figure out like different things that you like, and it kind of informs what direction you want to go in. And so I knew I came away from this program knowing that like I like program planning, and I like the policy aspect, and I put that into my job search when I graduated. I did work with CARE for a couple of months after graduation, because I started the job search super early, but it was super hard to find something. I was stressing like to the max, but I eventually found something, which was FHI. And it's been a learning it's been like a progress of learning that position in clinical research. I had no experience in clinical research, but they were interested in having somebody that was new to the field and was excited to learn more about it. And it has been super rewarding so far. And I look forward to just switching things up in the future. And I think that's something that's been super valuable that I've learned from the program, is that nothing is linear and you can go all over the place. This will just lead you all over the public health map, and you really do have the skills to transition to whatever you want to in the future. So yeah, I'll stop there and pass on to Krista.
Cool. I'm glad I'm following up with you both, because that is honestly exactly how I was going to say it anyway. So basically, I started off my undergrad I have a bachelor's in exercise science and a bachelor's in health science. So my senior year of undergrad, I was very unsure of what I was going to do. If anyone here on the call was exercise science, you know that it goes a lot towards PT or OT or things like that. And I just was not feeling that. And I was really stressed. I was like, crap, I just spent 4 years of my life studying something that I love, but I don't want to do what most people are doing with it. So I did a search for programs and came across the PAPH program, which really spoke to me because it really did a blend of both of my bachelor's degrees. And then going into the program, I can just, say exactly the same things that Jayla and Seth were saying. You learn so many skills that if you don't think you're going to use them now, I promise you, you will. Going in, there were a couple classes where, although I really enjoyed them, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm really going to be using that later on. But not even a year into my career, I've already been using all of those. So when I was looking for jobs, I started pretty early on, I would say January or February of, maybe even a little earlier than that, before graduating. And like Jayla said, I was very stressed going through COVID and looking for a job afterwards. I wasn't sure what was going to be there. But then I started signing myself up for different listservs through different programs and different schools. I'm originally from New York, and I knew I wasn't going to go back north, so I was only doing places in the South. So I came across a listserv. It was actually through, I believe it was UNC, where my PI, my supervisor, she put the listing for my team, and I just went on a whim because it mixed all things that I liked together, and ended up interviewing and getting the job. So another thing I want to say is, because my program is an exercise clinical trial, so it's a perfect career straight out of the PAPH program, but this isn't necessarily where I'd say I'll stay the rest of my life or end at. So like Jayla was saying, it's not a linear process. So what I really liked about the MPH was that I learned so many different skills that looking at jobs, I felt that I was prepared for kind of all the ones that I was interested in and looking at. And then even moving into the future, taking it and potentially switching gears, switching paths. I'm confident in all that we learned and all of what the professors put on the plate.
Oh my gosh, thank you all so much for sharing your stories. This is just phenomenal. Also, Krista, I love that your cats know when they're not needed, and that's when they want to be needed. So it's funny seeing him or them pop in.
I was working from home all day today, and I haven't seen him once. And then now he's in around, and you're probably going to hear him chomping on his food. So I apologize in advance.
They're funny like that. If anybody wants some cats, I have a bunch in my backyard that need homes. But digressing back to our conversation at hand. So I have all of your questions that you guys submitted, and we're definitely going to get to as many of those as possible. But you guys know I'm in a PhD thing at nighttime, and I'm taking qualitative inquiry. And something I know about semi-structured interviews is you need to ask follow-up questions. And so based on something that you guys all just said, I feel like we need to delve into this a little bit more before we move forward. So Seth, you talked a lot about a purpose and looking for a calling. And Krista, you talked about, well, you know, it's a job, it's good, but it's maybe not what I always want to do. And Jayla, I know you've kind of moved around jobs and as you're learning different things. So I guess, would you all speak a little bit to like finding your purpose or your why, but then also navigating just the different contexts of that and maybe where you see yourself going, moving forward and that kind of thing?
I love that question. Yeah, you know, really looking through yourself internally and looking at it from a values-based kind of place, right? Like there's certain things that you can compromise and certain things you can't. And I think every individual, that's very different. And it looks very unique and it's very nuanced for every individual given their situation. But for me, yeah, you know, there's just certain things I wasn't willing to, and I think this is also because I had a full-time job as a physical education teacher and a health education teacher. I could continue that work when I was graduating, so I didn't feel that same pressure. And so when I had the opportunity to move into the job I am holding currently, I really had to evaluate that and make sure that I was still going to have that connection. And it has taken me a while, and it's really full circle because I'm just coming up on the year anniversary of my job, and we're having these conversations in my organization constantly. I was lucky enough to join an organization where we put a lot of emphasis on connecting with each other and making sure that we have that attachment to what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And does it make sense through an equity lens? Does it make sense from an emotional intelligence standpoint? And so getting the privilege to join that kind of organization where that's on the forefront, I haven't been thinking of anywhere else right now. I think this is, you know, I'm kind of right where I need to be, but I do miss more community programming because that's what being a PE teacher was. I miss family nights. I miss that connectedness. So I think for me in the future, it'll be something like creating my own healthy out of school time site or something like that. I don't know. I haven't put all the pieces together, but I feel like in a couple of years, just like in the MPH program, you know, just trust the process and belief in yourself. And I feel like those certain paths make themselves available really quickly, especially if you've got your ear to the ground in terms of what the community needs are and what populations you want to serve. I'll stop there.
So for me, currently, the position that I'm in, what mattered most to me when I was like looking for a job was, what is the impact? Like, what is going to be, who's going to be impacted? How can I impact them? And that's what really just mattered most to me. And I do hope to move around a lot. I have this overwhelming feeling of like to keep searching. I feel like there's always something else out there for me. There's always something else to achieve and to look into. One of my goals and dreams that I have is, you know, we do our master's practicum, what was it? Our capstone. And I want to make that program that I did my presentation on come to life one day. That's something that I really want to do. And hopefully move more into like program management, program planning. But right now I feel like I'm getting a lot of that as a clinical trials assistant and understanding what that looks like at a micro and a macro level. And like, once again, I just like to encourage everybody, like when you're looking for your purpose and you're trying to find something that fits you, like just keep searching till it feels right. It'll feel right eventually. Just keep going. Yeah, that's it.
Once again, I'm going to sound just like Seth and Jayla, but what I really liked about the job that I have, so it's a grant funded position. And so it's for the term of the research study. So it's about 2.5 years left on the grant. So that was one of the things that really drew me to the work, because I knew, okay, it's not something that's super permanent. I'm not going to be, you know, feeling stuck in something or feel like I have to stay somewhere. So that's what I really liked about it. And to be honest, I never thought that I would want to work for the government. That was never something that was on my radar. But, you know, the first just the first few weeks of working with older veterans, you can just see the need that is there. And I want to do so much more than what I'm able to do. I see so many areas in the system that I want to help navigate and help streamline. Because once you're in a healthcare system like the VA, Seth, I'm sure that you have your own personal experiences with it, but you just see how there's some holes that going through the curriculum, a lot of us would see and know kind of like we need to change something. So like I said, I didn't think I would be working there, but I've really valued what I'm learning about how I'd like to change the system. But also I am doing worthwhile work. Our guys tell us all the time how they've been praying for something like this to come along and that they're just so excited to have a program that's suited to them. So I went into the public health field to try and make a difference while still having fun and doing something I enjoy, which I'm finding here. And like Seth and Jayla were saying, they're interested in program management, and I am as well as program planning. I really enjoyed that class that we had and like the evaluation. And although I'm not doing that right now, I'm learning a lot of skills and honing in on those skills that we learned in the MPH program to hopefully take after this grant is done, maybe moving on, even if it's within the VA or outside the VA. I'm having a lot of fun in my job, and I'm making a difference and learning skills that I can take to hopefully a better job later on when I'm ready to go there. So I just be open to things because like you may work somewhere that you never imagined and you may end up loving it. So it's a really fun field.
Oh my gosh, thank you all for sharing all of that. And Krista, we'll let you talk first next time so it can seem like you're setting the bar, so then they can follow you up and say, well, just copying what Krista said. I know you guys don't really want to hear from me, but just a theme that was really salient from that was the journey is the destination. And, I think that's a big to-do about it. And, you'll find your way. And that's the cool thing about public health. We can have lots of different careers. You can change careers 5 times or 20 times if you want to. Thank you all for sharing all of that. So, and again, this is very informal. So if y'all have questions or like they're talking on things you want people to elaborate on, unmute, raise your hand, put it in the chat, whatever. But if you don't have any, I'm going to hop into your formally submitted questions. So first, and I am going to give this one right to Krista because we had an experience talking about this. How do you go about negotiating salary, or did you go about negotiating salary for our panelists? Oh, and before we answer that, I see Joey's hand up. Hi, Joey.
Hi, hello everyone. Thanks for being here. Quick question. Our HPB cohort is really small and is dwindling by the day, literally. Shout out to Nabila, who's also HPB. I guess my question is like, how important are those concentrations when you are looking for a job? And do you feel like, although your concentrations in HPB, you might be able to apply to something that's like in policy or something like that? I am a dual degree student, so I only had 2 options of HPB and HISPM, but like the physical activity concentration really did speak to me as well, because I did exercise, sport, and science as my major in undergrad. So it's just like, how important, I guess, are those concentrations? Yeah.
I'll take that one. Joey, are you in the MSW MPH?
I am.
Okay, I have 2 really good friends who are graduating from that program. So in my experience, unless you are trying to go into something biostats or epi, because having that concentration is really helpful for those specific jobs. In my experience, it really isn't that big of a game changer. So although my PAPH is really helpful for my job, talking with them afterwards, after I got the job and everything, it was a whole range of different, not even all public health people, but different concentrations, different majors, different experiences. And then other jobs that I had been applying to, honestly, were a lot more HPEB or health promotion. And I made it pretty far in those ones before choosing the job that I have. So I wouldn't let those hold you up if it's of interest to you. If you tailor your resume and you really make it known the experiences that you have and the purpose that you want to have in that position, I think it should be completely fine.
Thank you.
And so if any students ever rewatch this, we're getting a lot of retweets and dittos in the chat. So great advice said by Krista. So you're rewinding back. So did you go about negotiating salary, or how do you go about doing that? And I'll hand that off to Krista first.
Yeah, so I actually met with Zach and Professor Place when I was starting to negotiate my salary. So I was really nervous about it because I went straight from undergrad to grad school, and I had only ever had part-time jobs. And so I never had to negotiate salary. So I was very nervous, but they were very helpful in, talking with me. And honestly, they didn't really you didn't give me any tips necessarily, but you helped me work through it. So you helped give me tips by helping me figure out okay, what do I think I should be getting paid? What is people in a similar position getting paid? But then in my job's a little bit different and a little bit tricky because it is a government job. So there's a grade system. So what they brought to me, I felt was like a low number. And I said that, and I was honest about it. I said, I think that's kind of low. I have this experience, this education. I think that I'm perfectly qualified, yada, yada. And so my supervisor took that back to the HR people. So just make it known and let them know that. I will say I wasn't really given much more than what they were giving me, but that's because the government has, they put things into a spreadsheet, your education, your experience, and it just spits you out at a number. So my supervisor is really great. And at my 1 year, at 6 month to 1 year mark, we're having a lot of negotiations for that being higher due to getting more experience. And then I've also brought it upon myself of doing more than what I was hired to do and learning more. So I don't know if I'm the best person to talk about salary negotiation because I kind of was set at something because Uncle Sam likes his steps.
I'm grant funded as well. And my grant is through Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so when I was in the interview process, early on, I was made aware of the interview process was very daunting. It was a 4 interview process in 1 month. Yeah, four interviews, and each interview had certain aspects to it. It's like a presentation for the final one. I mean, it felt very high stakes in a lot of ways. But what also made it different was there was also specific interviews related to how we discussed our EDI, our personal EDI journey, and equity, and things that were really interesting I've never seen from a job interview before, because my previous experience was simply military and then education. So very much like Krista, mine was always on a spreadsheet, and no matter how hard you worked, you got that amount. Like that was it, even if you went well beyond what you did, which, as we know with teachers and military, that is often the case, right? They're really underpaid. So anyways, when I was getting it, I definitely should have reached out to Zach and someone else, but I really just did my research with, I used Glassdoor and a few other, wherever I could find information. I scoured the web and just looked for, program managers, what's the range, what is the Alliance for Healthier Generation salary? And once I had a decent amount of information, I felt prepared with my own internal low number. I had the low bar, I guess you would say. I was like, this is my cutoff. And at this, I don't want to leave exactly what I'm doing without this. And they were right at that number. So I didn't have to do much negotiating. I could have asked for more, but I decided that since it was right at my cutoff, it's exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah, similar to Krista, I went from, straight from undergrad to graduate school. And so it's like, I didn't have like that work experience. I never had to like negotiate. And then similarly to Seth, when the position that I'm in now, it was like right at the number I wanted. So I was like, okay, cool. But in the future, I mean, I've definitely used Glassdoor. Glassdoor is so helpful with like preparing for interviews and like getting the other like perceptions about like the organization that you're interviewing for, maybe some questions, do your market research for the positions that you're looking at. And also, I went on Reddit and TikTok, super helpful. They gave some great advice, and I was like, I might use this in the future. One that I hope to use in the future is, they ask you, oh, like, what is the number that you're looking at? And then to just be like, well, what do you have budgeted for this position? And when I use that, I'll come back to you guys and tell you how it worked out.
Thanks for sharing, everyone. Yeah, that's always such an interesting process, and it's different for a lot of different people. But I do think that, especially if you feel like the number that you're seeing is low, I think it's important that you do at least ask, because this kind of like your one opportunity. And the worst they can say is no. Like, they're not going to pull the rug out from you and say, oh, you asked for more money, well, now we're going to hire someone else. Like, that's not really how it works. And so anyways, if you guys have concerns around that, I'm happy to chat with you about it. So the next question is similar to that. So how strict are the experience requirements in job postings? Because it seems as if there aren't many opportunities for people with no experience. And I think this will be interesting because Seth has experience, but experience in a lot of different ways. And Jayla has had some experience, and Krista went around. So would love to hear you guys' thoughts on the experience requirements and job descriptions.
Jayla, you take it.
Yeah, okay. So it was kind of daunting at first. I feel like the thing coming out of grad school or just anything, you kind of have that imposter syndrome. You're trying to figure out, like, am I qualified for this? Like, can I do this? And it was really just like overcoming that. It's like, just apply. Like, a lot of the times it'll be like, oh, like a master's is required or a bachelor's. And if the job description matches up with what you want to do, my advice is just to apply. The worst thing that could happen is that you never get an email back, or they email you back and tell you, we're moving forward with more experienced candidates. But yeah, that's my advice for that. But I found that a lot of the positions that I was looking for that required a master's, those were the ones where I was like, okay, I'm not sure yet. The ones that required bachelor's, I was like, okay, those were kind of, I felt like more in my wheelhouse. Like, I felt more qualified for those. That was just my personal feeling. But I got out of that and just applied for every and anything that I liked.
Yeah, it's weird, not feeling like you match the description sometimes, if you're like going apples for apples on, what you've done in the past. But a lot of that goes into just get experience. You know what I mean? In terms of like, if it seems like you could really dive into it and the range is there and everything's healthy, especially if you don't have that prior experience, like something that I kind of wish I would have considered when I was younger is like community health work, or being involved with that side of programming and how transformative that can be. I dare say if you're limited on experience, find something that you really feel like you can dive into and commit to and be passionate about. And again, we all face different barriers and constraints, but find what really works for you and speaks to you and kind of hop on it, and get that experience if you don't have that. And if you do have experience that you feel like is going to be really useful, speak to it. Be confident in what you've lived and tell your story and be authentic. And there's so much about my position that, Jayla, you mentioned imposter syndrome. I felt that. I felt like the guilt from leaving teaching and all kinds of things. I was just like, what did I just do to myself? But then, just like Krista was speaking on earlier, you learn everything, like everything you're going to need out here, you're getting in your education right now. And I'm being genuine about that. I feel so capable when I talk shop about evaluation or grant management or anything. And it's already led in a year to really getting the reins as I've learned to get more, access to opportunities to work and to apply myself. And I think that potential is in all of us, right? You just got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I'll talk on a couple different things. So I've actually had the opportunity to sit on a hiring board. We're hiring a new research associate for our team. And so it's been a pretty long process. And we had a lot of applicants who had all the experience, you know, a lot of really cool experiences, a lot of perfectly tailored to what we're looking for. But I will say, have people, like if you're worried about experience, focus on your resume and especially your cover letter. The research coordinator, who's the one that's making not the final decisions, but her decision is kind of the one that matters the most because she's going to be managing them. We have someone who was perfectly qualified, was definitely going to be really great, but their cover letter had so many errors and typos that she threw it out right away. She was like, no, I'm not. I don't care if she's experienced. Like, we don't want to work with someone who doesn't have someone take a second look. So you could have all the experience in the world, but then make something small of an error and then not get the job. But on the other side of that, we have people who may thought that they were underqualified, but they sold themselves really well on paper. And then when we interviewed them, show your personality, because some of the underqualified people we love so much more than the ones who on paper you want to have on your team. So when it came down to our short list, I think we brought 3 and one of them had all of the qualifications that we were asking for. The other 2 hit a couple of those, but we just really enjoyed them and they sold their experiences. So sell your experiences for sure, even if you think it's not going to make a difference. So like if you are someone on the HPEB side and you're trying to switch and do something different, sell what you've done in a way that makes sense to them and that you can bring it to that side, if that makes sense.
Hi, Joey.
Me again. I was wondering if you all did, like, this sounds lame, but like extracurricular activities outside of class that made you more competitive in the job market, like volunteering or I don't know, research, a GA, anything like that. I'm considering a doctorate and that's like way further down the line, but what kinds of things would you all suggest to get involved in that's not school? Because our schedules are so busy that we don't have a lot. So what's that one thing, I guess, that you would suggest?
I mean, honestly, in my experience, I didn't do a whole lot of like extracurricular stuff like outside of school when I was in the MPH program. A lot of the stuff that I do now that I'm like preparing myself and like, you know, gearing up for maybe new positions is focusing, like going out of your comfort zone and finding some of those like professional development opportunities. So whether it's like, you know, Google offers like some certifications that can prepare you for different positions. Yeah, so that there are some things that you can do individually on your own time. Um, the internet is a great way to find some of those opportunities. I would suggest doing some of that, but no like extracurriculars or like clubs throughout my MPH.
And again, this kind of goes into, it really depends on where you see yourself and what level of this work you see yourself. Because if you're really looking to get involved with community work, for instance, get that experience wherever you can and however you can. A lot of times there's volunteer opportunities that are just like as simple as a few hours if they're running a particular event. But yeah, if that's something of interest to you, I definitely recommend getting involved with community coalition work. There's just there's a whole range of stuff that's embedded right in specific communities that might be of interest to you to work with. And I think anytime you spend around people who are in the field and with their hands in the dirt, so to speak, you're going to pick up stuff and things that are going to really be thought provoking and really maybe put you in a different direction that you otherwise wouldn't have known existed. So just get out there.
Yeah, I think when you're doing the experience part, just that's an extra barrier that they're trying to add in to see, like, can you do some of this stuff, right? And so don't sell yourself short. By the time you're done, if you did a GA for a full year, That's 20 hours times two for a full year times two. That's a year of experience, and you have a master's degree. And a lot of it is how like you can game the system of fixing your resume to show that, oh no, you do have the experience, but you just weren't. It's like we do so much in the master's program. When you really take a step back and you start talking about all the things you did, you're like, oh my God, actually, I've done a lot. I know a lot. And so do not sell yourself short. And I think that was really good advice by Krista. And all y'all had great advice, but I thought that was great advice by Krista of letting yourself shine through the interview. Because when you all graduate, everyone's going to have an MPH. But the things that are going to make you really successful at your job are the things that make Joey special, and Emmanuel special, and Morgan, and Nabila, and Jesse, and even Dwayne. It's because you're you, and you're going to bring these extra things that change the way that you make your role your own. So that's just my 2 cents. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, hi everybody. Thanks for being here. And I'm a little self-conscious. I'm sitting in my my son's room. This is his Imagine Dragons poster on up here. But so I have a question, and it's for you, Seth, really, because my issue isn't lack of experience. I've had a professional career for over 20 years, and now I'm looking to change. So something similar, very different circumstances, but similar to your situation where you changed careers. And I'm curious, if you could just talk a little bit about how you sold your experience that was different, different from what you were looking for in the future. And I could very easily, I think, actually, I interviewed earlier a few months ago for an administrator position, and I live in Vermont, and for the Vermont Department of Health, and they were very interested in me, but I'm not, it was very easy to see the things that I do have experience with, but I'm trying to figure out, how do I convince people that I actually want to go in a different direction and like hire me on the programmatic side and not on, the administration side. If you could speak a little bit about your transition in careers, I would appreciate it.
That's a great question, Sharon. Thanks for asking. And yeah, it's well, certainly there was some parallels between obviously getting into a position that was a grant funded position to reduce diabetes when you're a physical education teacher, right? You can pull to I could pull to the community kind of participatory model that I used as an educator, right? So things like the things that I was already doing, I definitely use that in my position. But you're right. In terms of being a program manager right out of grad school, I skipped some steps in regards to like the process of that. So for instance, like the South Carolina DHEC schedule is more of like you start at the coordinator position and work your way up. And there were certainly some aspects of that felt daunting to me, but at the same time, I felt prepared. I spoke to the things that I knew and that I was confident in, and I spoke about assessment and priding myself on organization and evaluation and the things that are true, but also spoke to some of the vulnerabilities, and how I would address those in the sense of, yes, there will be a learning gap, but you won't find a worker that's going to work harder than me in terms of trying to grow, because I want to learn all the time. Like tonight is a learning experience, and I'm learning so much, just being on this. And that's really, I think people pick up on that really quickly. If I was talking to the vice president of strategic partnerships, right? That's like a big title, but she was talking to me just to catch up. And that's kind of like how the organization rolls. And I felt like it allowed me to be more comfortable in my interviews because of the things how we were talking to each other and what we were talking about. And I just didn't know that was out there. And so I encourage you to really look, when you're applying, if you have the luxury of taking your time, find something that really speaks to you and then speak back, speak to all the things that you really want to do, and people will pick up on that 100%. Just be your authentic self, and people pick up on that. And I shared in the chat, but I've also I've been on hiring boards now that I've been in this position for adding another program manager, and going through that experience was incredibly enlightening in terms of being on the other side of, oh, I'm on an interview panel now, and what are we looking for? And those soft skills are so transferable, especially when it's all virtual. You really have to weed through that division that the screen creates and really capture them. And I think that is easy to do when you're speaking from the heart, and really, I think you'll be just fine. I'm not sure what exactly, your field you're going to go into, but speak to your strengths.
Thanks for that question, Sharon. Seth, it's like you just gave me an alley-oop. It's almost NBA playoffs time, so this is perfect. So our next question is, how did you prepare for the interview, and what were the hardest interview questions?
I feel like I want to take a step back. I talk too much, so yeah, Krista, take it.
Yeah, I'll take it. So honestly, I just Googled like common interview questions to start off, because they all start off with tell me about yourself. And honestly, that's the hardest one for me, because like icebreakers at beginning of classes, I hated because I had nothing interesting about myself. I never knew what to say. So when it would come up to that, I really prepared that because that's their first impression. So I prepared that a lot and made it, very genuine. I stayed genuine, and I talked about things that I liked. So, things that like hobbies growing up or hobbies now, because it kind of made me more comfortable, and it let them know a little bit more about me and my background, and not because they were going to talk to me about professional experience in a couple minutes anyway. So they'd already know those things. So I focus on that one a lot because I had experience in two different grad assistantships. I worked one at the health center and then one in research. So they were both perfect for the job that I have. And so I knew I could talk all day long about the research. I could talk all day long about what I learned in both of those and what I learned in the MPH program. So I focus on the things that I felt more uncomfortable talking about. So talking about myself, talking about why I'd be good for the job, and then also strengths and weaknesses, and how I could tailor those to highlight myself and highlight how, just like Seth, I really love to learn. And even if I'm not super qualified, or even if I have setbacks, how I would use those to move forward. So I focus on the personal question most, and then strengths and weaknesses. Those are my two ones that I kind of studied a little bit on.
I'm going to say, very similar to Krista, I also do not like talking about myself. So it's like, okay, how do I do this in a way that like touches on all the points that I feel like I can be personable with these people, and to also like get comfortable, and it kind of like you feel closer to the interviewer, you give them an insight into who you are and how your personality can fit into their organization, and then also the strengths and weaknesses. And then also the other questions that I find fairly difficult are the ones where they ask for scenarios where maybe, give us a difficult scenario and like how you fixed it. And I feel like for me, the only way I really prepared for those was just like, okay, I need to go back through my experiences and maybe like prepare, just have that answer prepared. Because it was fairly hard to think about that on the fly. But also really use Glassdoor. Glassdoor is super helpful. People do put some of their most memorable interview questions on there, or the hardest interview questions that they got. So it gives you an insight into what that process is like.
I just want to add another thing onto that. When Jayla was talking, I was thinking about it. Like, if you have the job summary from like the job posting, have those like main duties like that you're going to be doing, and know what experiences you have that can help you with that. Because when you have to sit there and think about it, because a lot of interviews now, in my experience, are virtual. So you just have to sit there and like twiddle your thumbs trying to think about it. It's going to be kind of an awkward situation. Then you're going to get even more nervous. So know how your experience, even if you think you don't have a ton for that job, how you can apply those things to the specific tasks and duties of a day-to-day job.
Great insights. I think that, yeah, you got to be prepared for like the big 3 or 4. Tell me about yourself, strengths and weaknesses, name a time you faced adversity, and you'll be ready for all 3 of those because you're going to practice them and stuff like that. And they're always going to ask you one that like makes no sense or like you weren't expecting. But just like Seth and Krista and Jayla have been saying, pull from your own experiences. You know what you know. You know the knowledge that you have, and you know like the jobs you've done and like the things that have happened in the past. So just pull from that stuff, because then you're just speaking from the heart. You're being your true authentic self, as Seth put it. So I think that's an important piece of it. So we got through interviews now. Jesse, I'm trying to remember which questions you asked because I've got them all just aggregated here. Let's see here, interviews. Sharon's got another question. Great.
Going back a few steps, Krista, early on you mentioned listservs, and I'm curious, how did you find those? Like, I think it was getting job postings.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of nights for like a couple of hours laying in bed, like searching public health, like big public health schools, what listservs they had. So a lot of times you can find them, like you don't have to be a student to like at that school to find them. So like I got mine at the UNC listserv. There's also one, we do have one, I think HPB has one through U of SC. Certain programs have them like through South Carolina or concentrations, but I would just honestly like Google is your best friend for those things. You know, if you're in Vermont, like look in the area of like, if there's a school, like if, I don't know what part of Vermont you're from, but if there's a school nearby that they have a listserv, you could also, I did a lot looking at state health departments and finding, I don't think they called them listservs. I think you could just sign up for job postings and they would get sent to you. So if there's a type of organization that you want to be in, usually if you spend enough time on their website, I pretty much stalked a lot of these websites to find it. You should be able to find like an email where you just put your email in and they will send you job postings as they come out to them.
Great question. Thank you, Sharon. And those listservs, like even though it's like school public health, a lot of times it's just grads or people, they're like just forwarding it all like, oh my God, do you know anyone? And it'll be in Virginia or here or there. So yeah, I think subscribing to a lot of those is a great idea. So we're running short on time, even though we had a couple more questions to get through. And as you all know, I could probably talk for like 3 hours, but we'll keep it at 1. And so I want to give our panelists a chance to just offer some final words of wisdom and some encouragement as all of you start navigating, traversing the mist, to use the Elden Ring term, of the job hunt and that kind of thing.
I'll kick it off. Some advice that I have are just general thoughts is to, just keep moving in the direction of what you feel is right. It's not always going to come to you immediately. You might not know exactly what you want to do once you graduate, but always keep an open mind. Have confidence in your skills that you've learned, the program, and the other things you can get from your classmates, and really apply that to your job search. And especially in whatever positions that you do end up finding or want to pursue. And really just like believe that you can do this. It's going to come. And to really reach out to your past classmates and also your professors if you do need advice. I mean, I feel that one thing I came away from this program feeling is that we were very close and that I could, email somebody about a question I had or follow up with them and be like, hey, what are you doing? So really use those connections and keep in contact, because this is a great program where I feel like everybody really genuinely cared about each other and our progress in our futures, and was very, in tune to what was going on and cared. So remember that.
I love that so much. And that resonates with me. Yeah. Stay connected to people, and you won't believe the intersections. I feel like, especially I'm in, Dr. Kinnison, who was one of, I only got to take one policy class and it was hers, and it blew me. I took that with Jayla, and it blew me away to finish grad school and then be in meetings with her from, she's in evaluation capacity, but still it's like, those connections, they can last a lifetime and they can build some bridges. So, good energy in is going to probably equal some good energy out. And you know, what you put into all this in this process. And like Krista said, there's some late nights, and that's okay, you know, because you're putting in the work now to get to where you want to be. So yeah, look on those. And a lot of things aren't posted. You know, a lot of things are like, for instance, I think Tobacco Free SC recently hired like a program coordinator. I never saw that on a listserv anywhere. I just saw it through some meetings I had with them, and they mentioned it. And so sometimes you got to search around and find that needle in the haystack too. Don't just rely, you know, do the listservs, do everything, do your due diligence, but also go a step beyond, and you'll see something you like.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what both Jayla and Seth were saying. Don't only stay connected with people at like your MPH. You never know where people who may that may not be in a public health career, they may know someone where you could work for them or you could work with them. If it's a huge organization, you may know someone who does a job totally different than yours. But if there's a job in that organization that you're interested in, talk with them and get some like inside insights into that. My job, it was really funny. The woman who hired me knows my best friend. They went to school together. So that was a really good inside thing for me to have. It helped me get to know like what the program was more going to be about and help me in my interview. But then just know that whatever job, like most likely if you are coming straight out of grad school, especially for those of you who went straight from undergrad to grad, you're most likely not going to find your dream job straight out of the gate. Don't get discouraged when you're not getting a job that you think is the only one that you want. You'll find something. And even if the job you get right away or in a few months isn't exactly what you want to be doing, I promise that it's going to help you get to the job that you want to have. You need that experience, especially if it's something that you don't think you're going to love. Like I said earlier, I didn't think I was going to love mine. And there's so many things that just come out as curveballs that you wouldn't expect that are going to help you in the future.
Such great wisdom from everyone. So in just closing on the positive thoughts, all of you are worthy, all of you are ready, all of you are going to make it. Just embrace the journey. The journey is the destination. And then you'll be on the panel next year, and then you can say, "Oh my God, I was in your seats last year, or screens rather, and all that kind of thing." This has been so much fun. It truly brings me so much joy to see all of you finding your jobs and making your way in life, and then see the journeys that the students are having, and then see where all of you go. So this has been amazing. I'll stick on just for another minute to say bye to everyone, but thank you all for attending. And if you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. We all care about you deeply and want to see you happy and successful. So we'll be in touch, and I hope everyone has a great Thursday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. This was great.
Thank y'all.
Thank you guys so much for your time. It was so great.
Oh, great.
No problem.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye, Seth. Oh, really? Bye. Hi, Jesse. You got a little cat.
I just wanted to show you the kibby.
How cute.
She was napping. Now she's mad. She's a bad. Just wanted to brag and say that I have a kitten now.
That's awesome. And I love that this is on the recording. I could probably take it off, but I feel like it should stay on.
Nah, it's fine. They'll enjoy it.
Hey, once the semester wraps up, we're going to catch up.
All right, let's do it.
Go.
All right,
I'll
see you.
Bye.